closing out the doors.
I welcome the members of the public and the media to the council meeting and remind you that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed. I would also ask that you please turn off your mobile phones to silent mode. Please be aware that there is a hearing loop in the chamber and is available at any time, and council staff can assist you with that at any time during the meeting. Please remain quiet in the audience so everyone can hear the meeting. Anyone disrupting the meeting may be asked to leave. Tonight, you will see that there's 21 reports in open council and 4 in closed council, a transparency rate of 60%. I would like to also reiterate some brief comments regarding the current IBAC hearing. The public hearing commenced on the 18th of November into several planning decisions by the City of Casey dating back to 2014. As the hearing is ongoing, it is not appropriate for the council to comment on specific allegations made at the hearing. But as the Mayor, I want to reassure the ratepayers that the City of Casey is fully cooperative with the Commission, and we welcome those hearings in the public interest. Please stand as I call upon Pastor Ian Edwards from Cross Point Baptist Church to read the prayer.
Father, we thank you that we can be here together tonight, and I pray on behalf of the citizens and residents of this great city of Casey, we just bow before you tonight and we ask you for your wisdom and your direction. I commit each of these men and women that represent us and give direction and make decisions and purpose the policies of this great community, that you give them wisdom, Father. You'll just presence yourself here with them. And there will be a conscious awareness of your love, your goodness, your grace and your mercy. And we thank you for your protection too over this place and over the whole city of Casey, that God, you will be faithful to take care of each and every person. So we thank you for your influence on this meeting tonight, your wisdom, your direction, your confidence, and Father, just the integrity of each of these men and women that give direction to us, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please remain standing as I call upon Mr. Uday from the Casey Multi-Faith Network to read the faith statement.
The Casey Multi-Faith Network exists to promote peace, harmony and understanding, and to do so in partnership with Casey Council and the wider Casey community. We aim to spread knowledge and clarity about what different religions or worldviews believe, teach and practice. We believe that all members of religion and faiths have the right to peacefully practice and celebrate their own religion in a shared attitude of friendly coexistence and cooperation with all other people.
Please be seated. The City of Casey proudly acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and pays respects to elders past, present and future. At the last council meeting, Councillor Aziz was granted leave of absence until the 31st of December. Councillor Abler was granted leave until the 18th of December, and Councillor Rosario was also granted leave on the 8th of leave of absence until the 18th of December. Councillors, are there any other apologies? I think it's 18th for Jeff and... Are there any other apologies? No? Yes?
I believe Councillor Stapleton is on her way, but
Councillor Stapleton is on her way, and so is Councillor Gillich.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, okay. So we don't need a mover and second, is that right? Yeah, we don't need a mover and second because they've already been given a leave of absence. A suspension of local laws. Councillor Rowe, you had one?
I do.
Thank you. So I'll move, could I have a mover and a seconder to move into suspension of local laws until I determine to reapply the local law? Moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Jackson. That is carried. Any dissent? That is carried. Councillor Gary Rowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last evening I had the honour, it's turned on,
Oh, yeah.
I had the honour to once again attend the annual presentation night at Cranbourne Secondary College. And Councillor Stapleton, myself and Councillor Ablett over the last 7 years that I've been on council, and prior to that with Amanda, presented a Mayfield Award to the students of year 7 and 8 on the basis of those that really put the effort in. They might not have been generally the brightest in the school, but they actually put effort in, and that's something that I really relate to, because you know, if you put the effort in this life, you'll get the results out, and it's really good to see some of these children and the efforts that they've put in with some of the disadvantages that they have, and you know, coming from overseas, as many of them do, first generation migrant children who have had you know, English as a second language, excelling and getting awards for excelling in English. I had last night obviously a very difficult time pronouncing some of the names, but it was really great. This young fellow come up and I congratulated him, and he says, "No worries, mate." And I thought that just shows how these young kids and their parents are really attempting to assimilate and are successfully assimilating into our community. But this plaque is to the City of Casey, and it's in appreciation of the valuable support your organisation has given to the college over many years, and this includes financial support for students and their education, as well as financial support for the Cranbourne Community Theatre. And I think on top of that, Madam Mayor, what we do is provide or do what we do very well, and that is to assist in lobbying of the state and federal governments in relation to the needs of our schools and our community. And we're very successful as a council in getting funds both from the state and the Fed. And the Cranbourne Secondary College is in fact just completed a 2-year development program in which they've renewed multiple facilities. They've changed the layout of the whole school with courtyards and benches to get the children in each year grouping to more interact, be more accepting of each other, and to create a community within the school community. And I think that goes to the credit of John Jovic, who's the retiring principal, and he made speech last night, saying that that would be his last function for the school. He's done an absolutely fantastic job, and that school is now a place of choice as far as education is concerned. Over 1,320 students attend that school every day from all different races and different parts of the world. And it's a credit to them that the school has become a school that had previously, many years ago, issues with behaviour and actually having a feeling of community. And they've actually turned it right around. And it's a great credit to John Jovi and the staff. And John has actually done nearly 40 years at the one school. He came out of teaching college, started at Cranbourne Secondary College. And I remember him starting when I started as the member for Cranbourne. And it certainly goes back a long way. And he's grown with the school. He's certainly excelled as a leader of the school, but he's also built a very strong school community around him with the teachers, the parent involvement, and particularly absolutely wonderful children, which obviously I'm not biased, but Cranbourne seems to produce them. So thank you for the opportunity, Madam Mayor, but this is for all the council, and on behalf of the school, I'd like to present it to you.
Thank you, Councillor Gary Rowe. I now determine the local law reapplied. Is there a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday the 19th of November? Moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Rowe. Declarations by councillors of any conflicts or personal interest pursuant to sections... carried for the minutes. Declaration by councillors or any conflicts of interest or pursuant to interest to section 79 and 79B of the Local Government Act 1989 in any items of notice in the paper. Does any councillor have any conflict of interest? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have two conflicts this evening, items 7.5 and 7.6, both indirect conflicting duty conflicts, Madam Mayor. I'm a board member of the ACE Foundation, of which both these items relate to in part thereof.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jackson. And I also have a conflict on 7.17, which I have emailed the CEO about. That it's a conflicting duty? It was a conflicting duty, conflict of interest. So, and we have to declare that interest immediately before the consideration of the item. So, public question time. There are 3 public questions received for tonight's council meeting. Ms Frost.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we have received a number of questions. The first 2 questions are from Mr Glazebrook. John Glazebrook is in the audience, the gallery tonight. Mr Glazebrook, thank you for your questions. Concerning the China strategy, the first question is, will Casey Council now continue with its controversial trips to China in view of Prime Minister Scott Morrison's concerns about Chinese infiltration of Australian government influence throughout Southeast Asia? And this will be responded to by the Manager Growth and Investment.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the City of Casey will continue work in accordance with its China engagement strategy during 2020, which aims to enable greater collaboration to maximise impact and benefit to economic and cultural exchange between China and the municipality. Officers intend to report back to Council in the new year on the progress of the 2019 delegations, with recommendations to continue to foster stronger relationships aimed at enabling economic and cultural growth and innovation.
Thank you. The second question is also from Mr Glazebrook. Thank you for your question, again concerning China. Will Casey Council now accept that China is not a democratic state and is only interested in other countries for their potential to be puppets of Beijing? And again, this question will be answered by the Manager Growth and Investment.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, the City of Casey are in lockstep with the federal government's approach to managing differences on human rights in China, which aims to be constructive and is based on dialogue. Thank you.
And our final questions are from Mr Gary Page. Mr Page is in the gallery. Thank you for your questions. Now, Mr Page submitted what I would consider a statement, and that will be available in the minutes, which is regarding a response from the 20th of August. And his other question was, a council is required to engage an environmental auditor by Ministerial Direction Number 1, potentially contaminated land clause 5. Will the council instruct any environmental auditors for the landfill to include in certificate of environmental audits assessments or reports the subdivision on Peak Drive, Harkaway, plus the 250 houses referred to in the answer to public question number 2 on the 6th of September 2011. This question will be answered by the Manager, Sustainability and Waste.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. A risk assessment reviewed by an EPA-appointed auditor and air emissions testings done at the power station demonstrate that risk from the landfill is adequately managed. However, council officers will forward concerns raised by Mr Page directly to the auditor for his consideration. Officers will also invite Mr Page for a second meeting to discuss the matter in more detail. Thank you.
There are no further questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Frost. Okay. Okay. Are there any agenda items that councillors wish to withdraw for further discussion? Councillor Cristani.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 7.2,
Yep.
7.12, 7.14. Thank you.
7.14, did you say? Sorry?
That's 7.2, 7.12 and 7.14.
7.14. Yep. Councillor Smith? 7.5 and 7.6. And is somebody able to withdraw 7.17, please? Councillor Cristani, thank you. So, yep. So councillors have nominated their items that they withdraw. Is there a mover and seconder to adopt the recommendation contained in officers' reports as follows? 7.1, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, 7.7, 7.8, 7.9, 7.10, 7.11, 7.13, 7.15, 7.16, 7.18, 7.19, 7.20, and 7.21. Is there a mover? Councillor Rowe. Seconder, Councillor Jackson. Thank you. Is there any dissent? That is carried. Councillor Cristani, you've got the first item, 7.2, for the Endeavour Meadows Ministry Andrews Centre.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation in my name.
Fantastic. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Flannery, yes?
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Madam Mayor, I just want to just say a few notes. I think I've mentioned Endeavour Ministries quite a few times. The Andrews Centre and the incredible work they do in the north of Casey, covering a great deal of Endeavour Hills and parts of Dubton and Listerville South, and even across the city, and the social services that they offer to the city, and they have been doing it primarily on a volunteer basis. They are at a crossroads and they need assistance from council in order to continue, and I'm grateful to officers for spending quite a lot of time on it, and on the team for really taking it through the rigour, ensuring that we were abiding by the Audit and Ethics Committee, and ensuring that we can still do what we can to assist this particular group. So I'm pleased to say that the outcome has been presented to the Andrews Centre, and they have understood the reasoning, and they're very grateful for any support that council could give. So with that, it lends itself to a 4-year funding and service agreement, which will help alleviate off the demand for these services on this growing the needs to the most vulnerable of our community. Thank you, Madam Mayor. With that, I'll present it to the chamber. Thank you.
Is there any dissent? That is carried. Considering we only have 5... Can I say? Yep, so considering of the quorum, we might move on to 7.12. Councillor Cristani, for the planning application 00167/1973 Browns Road, Devon Meadows.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move an alternate recommendation. My name. I'm just trying to find my notes. Forgive
Yeah.
me.
Madam Mayor, might I just raise that I'll, should that motion fail, I'll move the original motion in the report.
You're foreshadowing.
Foreshadow that further
okay.
motion, Madam Mayor. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Councillor Jackson.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to read the alternate motion because it's not actually in the report. I've circulated amongst councillors. The alternate motion is that council issue refusal to grant planning permit number planning A 00167/19 for use and development of a place of worship at 73 Browns Road, Devon Meadows, Victoria 3977, Lot 3, LP 124972 on the following grounds. Number 1, the proposed use and development is contrary to the purpose and decision guidelines of Clause 35.05 Green Wedge A zone of the KC planning scheme for the following reasons. A, the proposal fails to protect, conserve and enhance the biodiversity, particularly the southern brown bandicoot corridor and scenic landscapes of the area. B, the proposal does not protect the amenity of existing residents and rural living areas, and the proposal fails to meet the objectives of Clause 22.08-2 non-agricultural uses and Green Wedge area policies regarding the impact on areas of environmental resources within the subject site. The proposed use does not serve the immediate neighbourhood or surrounding communities. The proposal does not comply with the Western Port Green Wedge Management Plan by virtue of not being located within the preferred precinct of area precinct 2 in relation to that plan. Madam Mayor, I've misplaced my notes, but I'll just say what I was planning to say, and that is...
Point of order.
I'm sorry?
Madam Mayor?
Oh, sorry, get a
Councillor
seconder.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to raise the same thing. You need
Yep.
a second.
Is-
Thank you, Mr.
Is there a
Councillor.
is there a seconder? Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Councillor Fanny. Thank you, Councillor Rowe, for pointing that out. So I'd like to move that alternate recommendation in my name. I have, as many of you know, that I served over a 5-year period in the KC Conservation Committee with Councillor Rosario and former Councillor Mick Morland, and over that time I came to understand just how important to protect the Green Wedge is, and particularly representing the area of Narry North and Harkaway, who are very much into protecting the Green Wedge. And as we know, it falls across other parts of the city of Casey and the subject site tonight. I particularly wanted to raise issues that the Green Wedge A zone is focus on the types of uses that are appropriate, and because this particular usage is not applied into the Green Wedge zone, it is up to council for discretionary approval or refusal, and it does fall into a grey area for all intents and purposes. So in relation to the situation being that they had actually continue to function without a permit, Madam Mayor, and it's about whether or not it's actually doing the right thing by the community to say that you can operate illegally and then retrospectively ask for
Sorry, Madam Mayor,
approval.
point of order.
What is your point of order?
Just an error of fact, and
Yep.
perhaps I read the report wrong. I think Councillor Cristani said they continued to operate after they were told by the council to not. I believe the
Okay.
report said that they stopped and then applied for the permit.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll give that in
Yep.
favour of Councillor Jackson. So
Thank you.
Could you withdraw that? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I want to correct that. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. That's correct. It was operating illegally for a time until they stopped, and now retrospectively applying for a permit. So regardless, it's about what is expectant, what acceptable behaviour to the community to and how we should reflect that in our decision making. And so I think that really want to find my notes, Madam Mayor, but I just think it's really important that we capture what's actually written in here, and that the purpose and decision guidelines actually captured in the planning scheme. We should actually stick to our guns and stick to why we actually want to protect this green wedge zone. Are we going to protect it, or aren't we? That's really what it comes down to. And the biodiversity, the flora and fauna of the area, we have to consider that as well. But I just want to point out, all things considered, the immediate neighbours of this area have all objected, all the adjacent neighbours, and we must consider what they have had to say as well as further abroad. So I want to put that to the chamber, and thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to put that up. Thank you.
Is there any dissent on the refusal? Yeah, Councillor Jackson, what is your, or would you like to speak to your dissent? No. Would you like to reply on your, as a seconder? Okay. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to ask the planning officers a few questions, if I may, regarding the site. I just want to know, they say it's not a Sikh temple, but it's a dwelling. Can you expand on what the dwellings are, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
The use, the site contains an existing dwelling, an existing shed. That existing shed is the building proposed to be used for the majority of the activities. The proposal also includes some ancillary buildings, being a kitchen to the rear of that existing shed, and also a toilet block and a car park to the front.
Thank you. My second question is, what effect will this have, these dwellings being built or added onto, what effect will it have to the vegetation of the area?
Through you, Madam Mayor. In actual fact, there's no extension to the dwelling itself. It's just an additional shed to the rear and the car park. There is some removal of vegetation which is considered exotic or planted, and as part of the recommendation, a landscape plan is proposed to be included as a condition to ensure we get some additional landscaping through the site.
Thank you. And what effect, the other question I wanted, what effect would it have on this southern bandicoot? I mean, if the bandicoots are in the area and this is only a dwelling that's being added, what effect would it have on the bandicoots in that area, if there are any in that area?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. There was a study that was undertaken through the Western Port Green Wedge Management Plan, which identified the southern brown bandicoot. The corridors where they were identified, the closest one was approximately 900 metres west from the subject site, so we're not envisaging that there's any issues or impact on the bandicoot.
And the sorry, not one more question. A couple more, sorry. The location of where the dwellings are, what impact is that going to have on the green wedge? Where the site is, what impact is it having on the green wedge? So if you've got it up the top of the precinct 2, what impact will it have on the green wedge about the views and everything like that?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Well, officers believe it will have minimal to no impact on the green wedge, given the small scale of the proposal. There's very little buildings and works proposed, and the size of the proposal in terms of numbers and days of operation and hours of operation is relatively small.
And the last question I want to ask now, it says the Sikh temple or the dwelling, they will occupy it only for 2 days between the hours of Saturday for 4 hours and Sunday for 6 hours. Number one, can we elaborate on the hours that they will be using, or what times they'll be starting from and finishing from on a Saturday and Sunday? And the other question I want to raise is that, and I don't want to be detrimental to anybody, but stating that they only want to utilise it for 2 days, after they've been utilised, after they've used the the dwelling, and I'll say it illegally, for a period of time until it was closed, they were told to stop and get a permit. What guarantee are we going to have that they will respect the times, the Saturday and Sunday, between the times of 4 hours on a Saturday and 4 hours on a Sunday? What guarantees can they give us that they will respect the decision made tonight with us councillors?
Through you, Madam Mayor. The proposed hours of operation are Saturday between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. and on Sunday between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. As for the guarantee, we can't have any more or less guarantee that the users or the operators under this permit will operate in accordance with the permit than we could any other operation in the City of Casey that has a permit issued for the hours and the numbers.
So, sorry, Madam Mayor, just one more question, sorry. So there's a guaranteed 70 people to attend this dwelling on these particular days, but there's still no guarantee that they could build their numbers up, because we know we've got a big Indian population and Sikh population, that people could just come along on a Saturday and Sunday and build up the numbers well and truly over that 70 people.
Through you, Madam Mayor. In theory, it is possible, but the permit doesn't allow that. The permit places a very strict number on the number of attendees able to visit the site, and that is 70 as a maximum. There is no reason to believe that the applicant and the people that would run this business or this use would not adhere to the conditions contained within the proposed permit.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Just a follow-up question to that last one. Does that mean if the congregation wants to have more people, they have to apply for a new permit? Is that correct? Or
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, that's correct. Any change to any proposed change to any of the permit conditions would require council's approval.
Okay, thank you. Since there's dissent from Councillor Jackson, is there anybody else that has dissent? You have dissent? You have dissent, and you're the seconder?
That's okay.
That's okay, yep, okay. All right, so what do we do now?
That's okay.
Okay, we'll put it to the vote.
No, sorry, can I retract that?
You want to retract your dissent, that's fine. But,
Sorry, I'm just getting confused for a minute.
okay, all right, so we'll put it to the vote because there is dissent. So I think he didn't want to, Councillor Jackson didn't want to. So because there's dissent, it'll have to go to a vote. So all in favour? Counts, yep, one, yep. All in opposed to the amended, yep. And the motion is lost.
Madam Mayor, can I call a division on that, please?
Of course
So
you can,
capture
Councillor
the
Cristani. There's a division being called. So all in favour, please stand. Councillor Gillich and Councillor Cristani. All opposed to the alternate decision? Oh, yeah. Motion is Councillor Smith, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Rowe and Councillor Saray, and an abstention from Councillor Flannery. That motion is lost. Because Councillor Jackson foreshadowed the previous motion or recommendation, would you like to move that, Councillor Jackson? Thank you, Councillor Jackson, and seconded by Councillor Rowe. Would you like to introduce?
Sure.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor
Madam
Jackson.
Mayor, and I think I'll be brief because
Yes.
we've sort of gone over most of the issues already, but rightly pointed out by Councillor Flannery, we have a big Sikh population in the City of Casey. I think one of the biggest, if not the biggest. And to provide an area for this community who has done so much for our community to worship and pray, I think is an important thing. I note, and there was some discussion about the permit. The permit does only allow up to 70 patrons, only on 2 days a week, for a period of 6 hours and 4 hours. Obviously, the only guarantee we can get from them is that they comply with the planning permit, and I trust and hope that they will, Madam Mayor. And if you've had a chance to read the report, there are significant conditions in the report in relation to tree space and landscaping and drainage. There are something, and Madam Mayor, I was just adding it up before, but I ran out of time. There's something like 47 different items that they have to comply with or do, and under that there are subheadings. So for the purpose of the planning department, I believe they've done a thorough job on this. I believe they've ticked all the boxes, and for that reason, Madam Mayor, I'm following the advice of the planning officers and moving that in my name.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak as the seconder?
Reserve my right.
You reserve your right. Is there any dissent? Yeah, dissent from Councillor Cristani.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yep. Is there any other dissent? Because there is dissent. Dissent, that's fine. Thank you, Councillor Gillich. Because there's dissent, this has been put to a vote, so all in favour.
Sorry, can I speak to my
you want to
dissent?
speak to your dissent? No problem.
Madam Mayor, as I stated before, and I just wanted to pick up on a couple of the items that I raised, and this is about protecting and conserving Casey's Green Wedge land for its agricultural, environmental and recreation opportunities. Inappropriate developments must be refused so that future compatible land uses are not compromised. An existing illegal use is not a strategic justification for use to be allowed. And so I don't believe that retrospective approval is acceptable to our community. Given that, the use clearly does not comply with the purposes of the zone or Casey Council's policy for non-agricultural uses in Green Wedge areas policy. The application does not address the decision guidelines set out in clause 3505-6 and clause 22.08-5 of the Casey planning scheme. And the site is located more than 4 kilometres outside the preferred area for these uses, and so no strategic justification has been provided. Madam Mayor, I'll leave it there, but I note my dissent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cristani. Because there is dissent, this will be put to a vote. Would you like to speak to dissent, Councillor Gillich? Thank you.
I just wanted to add the fact that there's one about 3 or 5 minutes away from the one that is proposed. So yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Gillich. Since there is a dissent, I will put this to a vote. So now, would you like to speak to your Yep. Yep. Councillor Rowe, would you like to say something?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The wish to protect the Green Wedge is something that should be supported, and it is something that as a council we need to look at. The need for religious organisations and also private schools to seek the only cheaper source of land is allowable uses within the Green Wedge. The ability for these organisations to build or have places of worship, or to in fact have schools, similar to the Christian schools in Narrewarren North, that there was, I don't think there was any objections raised to that, but it's certainly something that we need to be mindful of, and we need to raise this matter with the state government, because it is the state government that sets the Green Wedge planning.
Point of order.
Councillor Cristani, what is your point of order?
Clarity on error of fact. It is also Casey that sets the planning policies on which we make decisions. I do get what you're saying, Councillor Rowe. State policy, but we also do frame them here in council. Thank you.
Councillor Cristani, I'm actually going to rule in favour of Councillor Rowe, because we actually are an authority of the state government to implement the Planning Act. So thank you very much. Councillor Rowe, you can continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I was saying, it is something that we can advocate for, because, Madam Mayor, people will, in this particular case, it's an existing house and shed on a block of land that was built with a permit and complied with the permit. These people, the applicants in this case, purchased that in good faith. And yes, they may have inadvertently not been aware that they required a permit. As soon as they were advised they required a permit, they ceased operation and did the right thing and sought a permit. So there is no extensive changes to the footprint of the house, nor the shed. There's certainly some improvement to the landscaping of the property, and as we've heard from the officers, it's some distance from the pathway of the bandicoots. Now, it is also, I know we had some objection in relation to the determination of the officers that the, bear with me a moment, there we go. So the officers have put forward in relation to answer some of these issues and criticism of their report, and for the purposes of clarity, whilst the subject site is not specifically within the preferred area bounded by Cranbourne, Frankston Road, Piercedale Road and Browns Road, it is within Precincts 2 and it is within an area which a non-rural use still can be contemplated under the planning scheme. So it's not that it's to be refused, and it's not that it's prohibited, it's an allowable use. And this is the whole thing with the Green Wedge. Allowable uses. How many places of worship, both Christian and Muslim, and schools do we have in Cranbourne North, in Narre Warren North? I agree with the...
Sorry, Councillor Rowe, we're going to have to ask for an extension of time. So moved by Councillor... 2 minutes by Councillor Jackson, 2 minutes by Councillor Jackson, and seconded by Councillor Smith. Any dissent?
Thank
that
you.
is carried. Thank you.
This is something that we must look at and we must advocate for to make sure that it is genuinely protected and genuinely used as a green wedge.
Yeah.
But also conversely, there are areas of the green wedge that perhaps we're expecting the owners, the current owners of this land, to bear the cost of maintenance of that land. And if it was to become overgrown with blackberries and weeds and the like, they'd have an enforcement order placed on them to clean up their property. So this is just another thing that, in relation to the green wedge.
Mm-hmm.
The community loves the green wedge. Who's going to put their hand in the pocket to help the people who own it maintain it? Because not everybody is going to be, or nor is their land of sufficient size to be a productive primary producing vegetable or cattle or sheep or goats, whatever it might be. So certainly I support the motion of...
Councillor Jackson,
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Because we have dissent, we do have to go to a vote. So all in favour of the original motion? Yeah. All not in favour? Thank you. Division has been called by Councillor Cristani. All in favour, please stand. Councillor Smith, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Rowe, Councillor Saray. All opposed? Councillor Cristani, Councillor Gillich, and an abstention from Councillor Flannery. That is carried. Thank you. Just quickly with some of our guests in the gallery, that means that it's gone through, so you can leave any time if you'd like to, but that's gone through. So just letting you know. Thank you. So moving back to 7.5, Councillor Smith will be withdrawing because Councillor Jackson has a conflict. So Councillor Jackson, could you please declare your conflict before? And I think because you're going to be out for the two,
Yep.
just
Of
please
course,
outline
of
for
course,
both.
Madam Mayor.
Yep.
I've got a conflict on items 7.5 and 7.6. Both are indirect conflicts, conflicting duties. As outlined before, I'm a board member of the ACE Foundation, and the ACE Foundation is part thereof subject of these recommendations.
Sure.
So and that's why I'm conflicted on both of them, and I'll step out of the room.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. We'll call you back in when it's been dealt with. Councillor Smith, would you like to move that recommendation?
Madam Mayor, I'll be moving the recommendation, page 23.
Do I have a seconder? No? Seconder? Councillor Rowe?
I'll be very quick, Madam Mayor. Those who have been around this chamber for the last few years will know that this was a controversial decision at the time, but nevertheless Council agreed to take on the distribution, or the annual distribution, of the Lynbrook Hotel community contributions. It came about because due to their licensing conditions, we were asked would we be interested in taking on the distribution, because there was a bit of dissatisfaction of the distribution of the funds prior to that point. It wasn't a recognition or acceptance, approval of gambling funds, but in the end, if we hadn't made that decision, that money would have been lost, or perhaps not distributed into the community in the way it probably was intended or should be. So the committee, I chaired the committee. I was very fortunate to be able to chair the committee. I didn't have a vote. The councillors on the committee don't have a vote. We're simply there to chair the meeting and contribute, I suppose, when necessary. But this was a committee that took this on with gusto. They looked at all the applications very carefully and made some pretty clear decisions. And you can see the maximum you could apply for was $10,000, and 3 of the applications were granted that maximum amount, which is a good indication of how the committee felt, or the panel felt, about those particular groups and their projects. So unfortunately not everyone can get it. We had several $100,000, I think, in a wish list, but the committee made the decision based on not just the benefit to the local community around the Lyndhurst, Lynbrook, Hampton Park community, which is the area that the Lynbrook Tavern serves, but also it goes beyond, and there's organisations that serve all parts of Casey. So I'm very proud of the decision the panel make, and I commend it to councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Is there any dissent? Yep, Councillor Rosalie. Yep. Councillor Rosalie Cristani, your dissent. Would you like to speak to your
Yes,
dissent?
Madam Mayor.
Yep, great.
Does the
Go
seconder
ahead.
want to speak first? Sorry, trying to tell you how to do your job.
That's right. Did you? You can speak
seconder want to
afterwards.
speak first?
Did you want to speak to your seconding? No, you reserve your right. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to remain consistent on this issue, and that is I've always dissented to the aspect that funds raised through pokie machines from the community to only give it back to the community, I still feel that it's just too defiled, to be honest. And I would suggest that maybe down the track we actually look at giving back distribution to another independent body rather than council. And so I would like to flag that today, maybe not capture it in the motion, but it is very concerning about the detriment to gambling that is impacted on the community. I don't like to see council have any hand, even if it's a sort of independent distribution service. I'd rather not. I'd rather us have it fully removed, and I believe that there's a big, I guess, element in the community that would agree with that. So I just want to make note of that, Madam Mayor, in my dissent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cristani. Because is there any other dissent in the chamber? No. Because there is a dissent, we have to go to a vote. So all in favour of the recommendation? All opposed? Councillor Gillich, are you abstaining from the decision? You're against? Okay. You voted for? Okay, all right. since that motion is that is carried. So, thank you very much. Councillor Smith, 7.6.
Yep. Let me just find it. Madam Mayor, I'll be moving the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Rowe.
I wasn't going to speak, but I have read the report in more detail since I just was asked to pull it out. It is fantastic to see the number of applicants and the success of those applicants. And if you look at the amount that's been distributed, and particularly the amount that was requested by the organisations that were successful, there's not many of them, if any, that didn't get the amount they wanted. No one was being greedy. It's not a big amount, but to these sort of voluntary groups, anything is a substantial amount to assist them in their work. So there's a really broad variety of groups, a broad variety of the things that they've requested. And you know, it's a shame that some organisations have missed out, whether they the panel didn't think they were suitable, or there were some that weren't eligible because they didn't fit the criteria. So apologies and sorry to those groups, but maybe next year they'll come back and have a better application. And I remind the members of the public and community that we do have lots of regular training sessions to help groups submit and write reports. So, Madam Mayor, I commend the report to councillors and congratulations to the groups who are receiving funding.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Is there any dissent? No. That is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 7.14. Councillor Cristani.
Thank you. Should I wait for Councillor Jackson to return?
Yes.
Yeah. Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I want to move a motion. I'm actually concerned about what's in front of us in relation to I'm going back to 7.14, 35 to 69 A Becker Road, Narre Warren North. This was raised last.
Sorry, just quickly. Is that an alternate, or is that?
Well, yeah, it's actually to defer to the 17th. No, sorry, 17th of December.
Oh, I see.
I know it's not up
wait
there
a sec,
to
'cause I don't
defer
think
to
it's
the
up
17th
there.
of December council meeting for decision.
So we'll need a seconder for that when it comes up.
Second that. It's just to defer the 7.14. Yeah.
Councillor Gillich to second the motion recommendation.
Just to defer it. Thank you. So the reason for the deferment is something that I learned today, was that should we pass this, it is in the framework that the community doesn't have appealing rights. And in this particular application, I want to seek community input from now until next meeting as much as I can to gain a little bit of their understanding and talk with fellow councillors and officers around about that. Sorry. Yeah, so I think that the 2 weeks would buy us some time to be able to get some understanding around that. We actually made a decision on this last council meeting, and this was there was separate wording that actually perhaps I could go to Mr. Moore or Mr. Tate to understand why is it we actually approved it last council meeting, but it's come back for this council meeting, just for all our understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. That's correct. The application was presented to the council meeting on the 7th of November with a recommendation to support. You would note in the attachment to this report that a report is included. In the body of the report, it talks about the advertising or notification process, with this particular site having a development plan overlay applicable to the planning controls. What that development plan does is exempts the application from formal notification, and it removes any appeal rights associated with the decision made.
Thank you, Madam. I just want to tie that up. So I just wanted to clarify that, and I wasn't aware in this particular instance when we're talking about quite a big change to the town centre there in Narre North, wanted to be sure that we had the support of the community on this. So because it really is a 2-week frame, it'll at least give us something. So if I could have support of fellow colleagues in relation to this, that'd be great. Thank you.
Is there any dissent to Councillor Jackson and Councillor Rowe? Would you like to, would the seconder like to speak? Councillor Gillage, would you like to speak? Would you like to speak? No. Would you like to, Councillor Jackson, would you like to speak to the dissent, to your dissent?
I will speak to the dissent, Madam
Yeah,
Mayor. And
sure.
sorry, I should have foreshadowed, like I did previously, the original application should this be lost. Madam Mayor, and it's very quick, I note Councillor Crestani raises an issue that the residents or those affected cannot appeal should this go through. So firstly, I do have a question of planning officers. Under the current overlay in this area, can anybody appeal these decisions? Is there a right under the current overlay? So if we're talking, let's hypothetically talk about a different application that falls under this overlay, could they appeal?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Only the applicant could appeal to VCAT. The DPO, as my colleague said earlier, exempts both notification and review. So regardless of whether council supports or refuses this application, the informal objections that we had have no appeal rights to the tribunal.
Thank you. So Madam Mayor, with that in mind, that irrespective of whether it was this one or another one under that current overlay, you cannot appeal anyway. And given the fact that it is a local business, it's increasing patronage, we're coming into the busy season, and furthermore, that essentially, despite an administrative error, we approved this back at the last council meeting. I see no reason to delay this any further, especially for this business, and especially given the season that we're going into.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Rowe, would you like to speak to you? Okay, because...
I'll just sum up, Madam
Yep,
Mayor.
sure.
Thank you. I hear what you're saying, Councillor Jackson. However, I still have my community to answer to. And with saying that, I believe I want to give them the courtesy, considering they have no appeal rights. And I also believe that should we refuse, then it's up to the applicant to take the issue to VCAT, and that the community's concerns can be reflected and represented at VCAT. And who knows, we don't always get upheld at VCAT. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crestani. Councillor Flannery, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, you're aware. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to support Councillor Castani in deferring it. Look, due to my work commitments and everything, I have to be ignorant to say that I haven't been up there, but I'd actually like to defer it because I'd actually like to go up there. I'm a sight and see person, so I would actually like to go up there and see the site myself and investigate the building, see if it's going to be suitable for outdoor venue for drinking and alcohol. I'm worried in the climate that we have that, people when they consume too much alcohol, the fights could erupt, and what would that impact have on the Casey Council and the residents around the area? I'd like to have a sight and see. As I said, it's come up before, and I'll be ignorant because due to work commitments, I haven't had the time to get up there. But I would love to go up there, and then I'd like to be able to reserve my right at the present time, go up there, have a look, and then come back in a couple of weeks' time, and I'll make judgment. I'll make my vote when it counts in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Rowe, would you like to ask a question or make a statement?
Madam Mayor, I'd be interested, like this came to council on the 7th of November. It was approved by the council, I believe, unanimously at that time. So that in itself means that Councillor Flannery and Councillor Crestani and Councillor Gillage probably voted for it.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Since there is dissent, would you like to speak to your... Yep.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The other thing I just wanted to add is that with what Councillor Cristani is saying, one of the reasons for this is because we've been inundated with like a very large amount of residents that have been contacting us about it, and they've wanted, like, there's that many of them that you don't get the time to obviously speak to all of them, but it would just be nicer to have that time to at least be able to speak to a majority of people and figure out how they're feeling, because it's their area where they live, where most of them live almost their whole lives. And like Rick said, like, I'd probably like to go up there as well and probably like take a look and maybe talk to some of the people up there that live close by. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Cristani. I think that's everyone who's spoken now. So since there is dissent, I have to put that to a vote. So all in favour of Councillor Cristani's alternate recommendation? All against? That motion is lost.
Division, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. A division has been called. All in favour, please stand. Councillor Gillich, Councillor Cristani, Councillor Flannery. All against the alternate recommendation? Councillor Smith, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Rowe and Councillor Saray. And that motion is lost. Since Councillor Jackson foreshadowed the original motion, could we please have that up on the screen? Councillor Jackson, I'm assuming you're the mover?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Seconder? Councillor Rowe. Would the mover like to speak to your...
Very briefly, Madam Mayor, a bit like the other issue, we've already dealt with most of this in the previous motion. But I'd make one point really, Madam Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And the point is, on the 7th of November, this application came before the chamber. In fact, just due to an administrative error, it said notice of decision to grant permit rather than amending a permit. So the permit already exists. So firstly, the permit already for this space exists. It is a simple amendment to that. Present on that day, Madam Mayor, was Councillor Flannery and Councillor Cristani. And when I have a look at the minutes, Madam Mayor, there's no dissent from either of those two councillors on the 7th. So I'm not sure what has changed between the 7th of November and now, when at that time they were willing to grant an entire permit. Now it's simply, as administrative error, we're now fixing that administrative error. This is, in my view, this is all this application is doing, is simply fixing an administrative error. The substance is no different than last time. And for those reasons, Madam Mayor, I don't think it's appropriate to defer it any further.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Would you like to dissent?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Would you like... I'll just give the seconder the right to... You reserve your right. Councillor Cristani, would you like to speak to your dissent?
Very brief, Madam. As the elected representative of the Four Oaks ward, I always want to go into bat for the community and always give them, if I can, an appeal process right. What's changed is an awareness of that. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to dissent or ask a question? Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Jackson, I get your point. I thank you for putting me straight. Mine is I just side on ignorance that I hadn't been up there to look at the premises and to see what's around the building concern and find out what safety concerns there may be for the general population. Yes, I voted for it, and but you know, as I said, I just plead ignorance because I just want to make sure that it's going to be safe for all residents. I want to make sure that it's safe for the consumer that goes into the place, and I want to make sure it's safe for the owners of the premises. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Anybody else have any dissent or any questions? Okay, since there is dissent, all in favour of the original motion? Okay, yep. All against the motion? Against? Or are you abstaining? Abstain?
Madam Mayor, I'm not sure we can abstain anymore. Can we?
Yeah, we can.
We
Yeah.
can. I'll abstain, thank you.
Then that motion is,
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Sorry. You
yes,
go. No, you go.
yeah, that motion is carried.
I'll call it division.
A
Madam Mayor.
division is being called by councillor Jackson. All in favour of the motion? Councillor Smith, councillor Jackson, councillor Rowe, councillor Saray. All against? Councillor Flannery. Abstentions? Councillor Prasani,
Do I have to say?
councillor Gillich. Abstentions.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, that's still carried. Thank you. The next item is 7.17. I have to declare a conflict of interest, which I have advised the CEO of in a conflicting duty. So, do you call the chair?
Yes,
Yep.
thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll just need a temporary chair, one of our deputy mayors, I would imagine. So we need a nomination. Councillor Prastani.
Sorry, Mr CEO.
Another reference
Forgive
would be
Can I please-
appreciated. Thank you.
Can I
Yeah.
please nominate Deputy Mayor Councillor Gary Rowe to take the chair? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rowe.
Okay, where are we up to? Where are we? Okay. Right, is there a mover of the original motion? Councillor Cristani,
Thank you, Councillor
seconder?
Deputy. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Smith. Thank you, Councillor Cristani.
Just a formality, Councillor Rowe, just moving that in my name as it states. Thank you.
Right, is there any dissent in relation to this motion? There being no dissent, I declare the motion carried. Can we ask Councillor Saray to rejoin us, please?
Thank you. What are we up to? General? Okay. Is there a mover and seconder to receive and note the record of the Assembly of Councillors as listed? Councillor Flannery to move, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Any dissent? That is carried. There are no notice of motions. Are there any petitions that councillors wish to present? No petitions. There's no delegate reports. Urgent business. Are there any items of urgent business by any councillor? No. Can I please have a mover and seconder to move the council resolve itself into closed council and resume our 5-minute adjournment, moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Rowe. That's the end of the meeting. Thank you.